Some stories in the Bible feel small and personal. This one feels like a movie. A mountain, a king, hundreds of false prophets, and one man standing alone, asking God to answer with fire. This is the story of Elijah versus the prophets of Baal, a nation that forgot its God. Our story is found in 1 Kings 18. At this point in Israel's history, things are a mess. The nation is split into 2 kingdoms. In the northern kingdom of Israel, there is a king named Ahab. Ahab has married a woman named Jezebel, a princess from a nearby nation. Jezebel brings with her the worship of a false god called Baal, a storm and fertility god that people believed controlled rain, crops, and the weather. Instead of stopping this, Ahab embraces it. He builds a temple for Baal in the capital city. He sets up an altar. He supports hundreds of Baal prophets and prophets of a goddess named Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. Slowly, the hearts of the people turn away from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Altars to the true God are torn down. Baal worship spreads. God doesn't just watch this silently. He sends a prophet named Elijah. Elijah steps into Ahab's court and delivers a shocking message. As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word. For an agricultural society, this is devastating. No rain means no crops means famine. And remember, Baal was supposed to be the god of storms and rain. If the sky shuts down, it's a direct challenge to Baal's supposed power. After Elijah delivers that message, God hides him. For years, there is a drought. Streams dry up. Food becomes scarce. By the time we reach 1 Kings 18, the situation is desperate. Elijah and Ahab meet again. After 3.5 years of drought, God speaks to Elijah, "Go and present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the land." Elijah obeys. On the way, we're given a glimpse of how bad things are. Ahab is searching everywhere, nation after nation, for Elijah. He's obsessed with finding him. He even sends his servant, Obadiah, to look for grass just to keep the royal horses and mules alive. Obadiah himself secretly fears God and has hidden 100 of the Lord's prophets in caves, feeding them with bread and water. Jezebel has been killing God's prophets, but Obadiah is quietly resisting. Then Obadiah runs into Elijah. Elijah tells him, "Go tell your master, Elijah is here." Obadiah is terrified. He thinks, if I tell Ahab you're here and then the Spirit of God carries you away somewhere, Ahab will kill me. Elijah promises he will stay and meet Ahab, so Obadiah goes. Ahab comes. When Ahab sees Elijah, he says, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" Elijah fires back, "I have not made trouble for Israel, but you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals." Then Elijah proposes something bold. "Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. A showdown is coming." The challenge on Mount Carmel. Ahab agrees. He sends word throughout Israel. People gather on Mount Carmel, a high place with a view of the sea, a place that had been used for worship before. Elijah stands before the crowd. Hundreds of Baal prophets are there in their robes. The people stand watching, undecided. Elijah speaks to them, "How long will you waver between 2 opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal is God, follow him," the people say. Nothing. They are silent, unsure, afraid to choose. Elijah lays out the terms for a contest. "I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left," he says, "but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let them choose 1 bull for themselves, cut it into pieces, and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, the God who answers by fire. He is God." The people like this idea. Good. They say it's a good proposal. Elijah lets the prophets of Baal go first. Baal's turn. Silence. The prophets of Baal choose a bull, prepare it, and lay it on their altar. From morning until noon they call, Baal, answer us. They shout, they dance, they perform their rituals around the altar. But nothing happens. The text says there was no response. No one answered. At noon, Elijah starts. Mocking them, he says, shout louder. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened. This is sarcasm, but it also digs at the idea of gods in that culture, gods who might be distracted, limited, or absent. So they shout louder. They cut themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flows. They continue their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But again, there was no response, no one answered, no one paid attention. Hundreds of prophets. Hours of shouting, blood, dancing, no fire, just silence. Elijah's turn, a simple prayer and soaked wood. Then Elijah calls the people closer. Come here to me. They crowd around. The altar of the Lord on that mountain had been torn down. Elijah repairs it with 12 stones, one for each of the tribes of Israel, symbolically reminding them of who they really are. He arranges the wood. He cuts the bull into pieces and lays it on the wood. Then he does something strange. He digs a trench around the altar. He tells them, fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood. They do it. Do it again, he says. They do it again. Do it a 3rd time. They pour water a 3rd time. The water runs down the altar and even fills the trench. This is the opposite of making it easy for a fire to start. There's no hidden spark, no dry tinder. Everything is soaked. When it's time for the evening sacrifice, Elijah steps forward and prays. No shouting, no dancing, no self-harm. Just a clear, focused prayer. Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then it happens, fire falls from the Lord. It burns up the sacrifice. The wood, the stones, the soil, even the water in the trench. This isn't a small flame, it's a consuming blaze. The people see it and fall face down, crying, the Lord, he is God, the Lord, he is God. Elijah orders that the prophets of Baal be seized. According to the law and the seriousness of what they've done leading the people into destructive idolatry, they are executed at the Kishon Valley. It's a hard, violent part of the story, reflecting the brutal seriousness of false worship in that time and the covenant context Israel was under. But the main point is clear. Baal didn't answer. The Lord did. The contest is over. The rain returns. Remember, this all started with a drought. Fire has fallen. The people have turned back. Now it's time for rain. Elijah says to Ahab, go, eat and drink, for there is the sound of a heavy rain. There's no visible storm yet. Just a word of faith. Elijah climbs back up to the top of Carmel, bends down to the ground, and puts his face between his knees to pray. He tells his servant, go and look toward the sea. The servant goes, looks, and comes back. There is nothing there. Elijah says, go back. 7 times this happens. On the 7th time, the servant says, a cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea. Elijah says, go and tell Ahab, hitch up your chariot and go down before the rain stops you. The sky, which had been clear for years, now grows black with clouds. The wind picks up. A heavy rain begins to fall. The drought is broken. The Spirit of the Lord comes on Elijah, and he tucks his cloak into his belt and runs ahead of Ahab's chariot all the way to the city of Jezreel. From no rain to fire to a storm, God has made his point. What this story says to us. So, what do we do with this dramatic story of a prophet versus hundreds of false prophets? It's not a call for modern showdowns or violence. It is a powerful picture of some timeless truths you can't live in the middle forever. Elijah's question still rings, how long will you waver between 2 opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. The people had been trying to hedge their baits. A bit of God, a bit of Baal, go with the flow of culture. Elijah forces a choice. We may not bow to statues today, but we still face the temptation to split our loyalty. A bit of God, a bit of money, a bit of success, a bit of approval. This story asks, who is really God in your life? Who gets the final yes? Noise and passion aren't the same as truth. The prophets of Baal shouted, danced, and cut themselves. They were sincere, they were passionate, they were wrong. Elijah simply prayed. Passion and volume don't make something true. They don't guarantee God's presence. What matters is who you're calling on and whether your heart is aligned with Him. God often repairs what others have torn down. Before calling down fire, Elijah rebuilds the broken altar of the Lord. In our lives, before we want fire from God power, signs, big moments, we may need to rebuild altars, places of simple worship, honesty, repentance, time in prayer. Elijah doesn't start with spectacle, he starts with restoration. God answers to turn hearts back, not just to put on a show. Elijah's prayer is revealing, answer me. So these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. God's goal isn't just to win an argument. It's to win back hearts when God moves in power, whether in obvious miracles or in quiet transformations. It's always aimed at relationship, not performance. Even heroes get tired. If you read the next chapter, you'll see Elijah, right after this victory, running for his life, exhausted and depressed. That's a reminder, even people who have seen God do incredible things are still human. They still need rest, reassurance, and care. Elijah versus the prophets of Baal is more than a dramatic showdown, it's a mirror. It asks, what Baal am I tempted to trust today? Money, reputation, comfort, control. Where am I trying to live in the middle, refusing to choose who I'll really follow? Do I equate noise and intensity with God's presence, or am I willing to quietly, simply ask Him to move? Is there a broken altar in my life that needs rebuilding? On Mount Carmel, one man stood alone, soaked an altar in water, and prayed a simple prayer, and God answered with fire. Today, the same God still hears, still sees, and still calls people back to Himself, not through fire on a mountain, but through His voice in our hearts and His work in our lives. Sometimes, all it takes to start is turning aside and saying, Lord, if you are God, I'm ready to follow you.